My name is Shelby Chung, and I am a councillor at large for the City of Thunder Bay. So as a City Council member, according to the Municipal Act, we're responsible for three things. One is passing policy. So policy comes across our table, we will look at it, and we will pass policy. It could be anything like bylaws or really whatever the policy says. We'll debate and pass it. The second thing is passing the budget. We look at the budget, we're in charge of the public coin purse. And the third thing is a representative role. And that role, we represent people on council, not as individuals, but as a group of people. So we decide where resources are going to go and what the rules are. I grew up in the East End of Thunder Bay with my mom and my four brothers. And I think we always had political type conversations around the table. You know, one of my parents was a union member, so we always had these discussions about what the good life is. And I always just assumed that other families also had these conversations. And it was in my grade 5 class with Ann Boo. So Ann Boo, if you're listening, you were my favorite teacher. Also Jim McCallum too. So those, okay, Jim's also in there too. So Mrs. Boo had us do this exercise during the federal election. And we had to take newspaper clippings and put them onto a political spectrum. And it was during the, I think it was 1996. And it was Jean Chrétien and Kim Campbell, so Liberals and Conservatives. And there was this whole political ad going back and forth, and we had to come and discuss it the next day at school. And Kim Campbell's team ran this ad making fun of Jean Chrétien, the way he speaks. And I was so appalled as a kid. I was like, how dare they? And I've had an affinity for Jean Chrétien ever since. And it kind of sparked that political side of me. And then when I got into Lakehead University, so I'm the first person to graduate high school in my family, and I went on to university. The first day of class, I actually signed up to take psychology. And the first day of class, I'm walking around campus with my, he was my boyfriend at the time. We're walking around, and we walk past the outpost. And everybody's glued to the TVs. Their faces are watching TV, and it looks like some sort of war going on. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what's going on, but these people are really intense. I should know something about something. So when I have time, I'm going to watch that TV and figure it out. So I get to class, and I sit down, and it's my first political science class. I took it as an elective. And the professor, Doug West, said, the World Trade Center just went down. And I was like, what's a World Trade Center? I had no idea, no clue. And it turns out what everyone was watching was the planes flying into the buildings. And I realized I needed to know something about what was going on in the world. And I switched my majors that day. It was September 11th, 2001. And I decided to take political science. So I ended up with an honors degree in political science. And after that, I thought I will probably never do politics because I just got tired of it and burnt out of it in 4 years. And then I worked at the Northern Ontario School of Medicine as an administrative assistant, and I put my husband through school and moved around there a little bit. I was there for almost 7 years and decided that I wanted to open up my own business. And I didn't know anybody in business, but I did see that a lot of small businesses, they had aging owners. Not a lot of young people were taken over, and I took advantage of the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund. And I received a grant to open up a small bridal boutique. And I had that for 9 years, and it was amazing. And I mean, COVID put an end to that. But in the early days, I wanted to be involved in the business improvement area. I did feel a lot of resistance, though, from the people that were there. And someone said, well, why do you want to be part of the business improvement area? Why don't you just run for council? Just go over their head. It's like, no, I can't run for council. I don't know anything. And then my friend said, Sean Patterson was like, you have a degree in political science. It's like, does anybody else on council have a degree in political science? It's like, well, I don't know who they are. So I took a look. I'm like, okay, who's the business owner on council? And I think there was 2 at the time that were business owners out of 13. 2 out of 13 were female. And so I'm like, okay, so not many females, not many business owners. What about anybody, even close to my age? And there was no one close to my age. And I was like, somebody should do something about this. And then, of course, as soon as I say that, it's usually me. And so I decided to run for council. And I didn't know much other than I had to knock on doors. And I made these little cards, and I knocked on a door, and I said, hey, how long have you lived here? And got these wonderful stories from my neighbors about coming and goings in Northwood. And and in October of 2014, I was elected as a city council member in Northwood. And I did 2 terms in Northwood, and then I ended up moving to the other side of town and decided to run at large. So that's kind of the story arc of how I came to sit here with you today. You don't really know what you're getting yourself into. A lot of people have opinions about what it's like, and past candidates have all kinds of ideas of what it's like. But it's not until you get there. It's very different. There's a lot of long meetings, a lot of reading, a lot of contemplation and quiet that you just have to figure things out. And you only see small snippets of it in the media. And so I think that's what becomes what people think being on council is. So what motivated me to run and what motivated me to stay are 2 different things. I wanted to make a difference, and that's what motivated me to run, to see myself represented. What motivated me to stay is, like my mom didn't learn to read until I was about 13. And she struggled a lot with reading, and she taught herself, and it was people around her that helped her. And I think what motivated me to stay was that I want to make sure that someone like my mom is represented on council. And so I keep that in the back of my mind when I'm making decisions about, do we close a hockey rink? And I think about my mom and the choices she had, or the limited things that she had. And it really puts a lens on it that I think is sometimes missing when you get council members who maybe didn't have that life. And not to say they didn't have their struggles, but it's definitely motivated me to stay, to make sure that, those people are represented, and my mom's included. Oh, most enjoyable thing. Okay, it's going to sound very small, but we get a parking pass, which is really kind of nice. So that, I would say that's the biggest perk of the job. In terms of the enjoyable parts is having access to people that I really wouldn't have access to or have conversations with other than being in this role. So I can have conversations with CEOs of companies, and I could go to Toronto and Ottawa and wherever to talk with ministers and other staffers about just what the good life is in Thunder Bay. And I don't know if I'd necessarily have that opportunity if I wasn't on council. And it's something that I think I can learn from everybody, and these conversations are invigorating and they're great. And even with the city manager, Norm Gale, I don't think I would have ever met him or our paths would cross if it wasn't for council. But he's somebody I've come to really appreciate. And he's always given me good book recommendations, and I'm always trying to help him figure out the alphabets of the Pride community. So we have this really fun and interesting relationship that might not have otherwise been there. I guess the most challenging is not losing my religion and always just trying to figure out why I'm here, because it can be very, you can lose it. You can lose the passion and the fire, and I think I've lost it and got it back so many times that, when I'm feeling I don't want to say depressed, but more unmotivated, disenfranchised from the system, that everything's broken and nothing works. And then you have, constituents that come out, like the Friends of the Conservatory, who are a great little group that really kept plugging away and gave me motivation many times, and I don't think they realized that, to keep going. And now with all the motions I've put forward to make sure that that place is well funded and taken care of, and with their backing, we're seeing results of that. And it's very encouraging, and yeah, it's been nice. I do sense that maybe it's like post-pandemic, people have been very, I don't want to say everyone's angry, but there's definitely a heightened sense of emotional tension that's built up in the community. And I think that it's really important to remember and reflect that throughout history, we've actually been here before. Not us, not these people, but humans in general. And I read this book called The Fourth Turning, which was super fascinating, and it breaks down time frames in 80-year groups, and within those 80 years, there's 20-year blocks. So there's always some big events, some big catastrophes. So if you look at World War I and World War II and influenza, after that happened, people were trying to make sense of their lives, and that's when they maybe a little disenfranchised in that time, they turned to art and culture and really tried to make sense. We got wacky plays like Waiting for Godot, and Picasso came out of that era, and it kind of gives you hope that things will normalize, but in a cycle. And we're in a cycle right now, and it's a bit of a depression, in that, prices of things are going up, people are feeling disenfranchised, very low, like historic low voter turnout. But I think that this is it is a phase that we're going through. It's a phase we've been in before. And I'm really looking forward to being there with the community when we pull through, and there's going to be a resurgence in art and culture. And then we'll have a new set of hippies, and the government will reestablish itself in a new way. And I think it's important for people to understand that it's okay to be here. And I think that's really what I want people to know. Oh, what makes me passionate? Sometimes when I ask myself this question, I'm like, I think there's something wrong with me. And I'm the Energizer Bunny, I just keep going, but I don't really have any other parts. It's a good question, and I just go back to my family. Like, I think about making decisions on behalf of my mom and people like her, or even my nephew, who's 17 now, and he's going to college next year, and he's on the spectrum, and we're trying to find, like, how is his life going to look? Is he going to be okay if we're not here? And it's making sure that there are places and systems in place for people like him that are advocating for people with disability, or people who didn't have the opportunity, or people who believed in them. And that's kind of what gets me going in the morning, is to make sure that those people are represented, and that because they're my family members, and I want to make sure that we're all represented equally on council. My name is Shelby Chung, and this is why I did it.